Today's tips, couples in business. So many people during the pandemic started their own business. A lot of those new businesses were started by couples. Steve Siebold, a certified financial educator and author of the book, How Money Works. You can go to howmoneyworks.com. So, Steve, I guess you know an awful lot about this because you and your wife also do a podcast together, right?
We do. After 30 years of being in business together, we have a lot to say about it.
I can only imagine. Now, me, myself, I cannot imagine working with my husband all day and then allowing him back in the house. That just seems like way too much for me. So how do you even start that? Because even when you have your own job or your own friends and all of that, sometimes marriages don't last.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to navigate. It really isn't. But if you can, the advantages are so substantial because effectively you're in business with the person you trust more than anyone in the world, and that is a serious strategic advantage.
So is it easy, though, to disagree on some of those petty little things from work, and then you bring those items home, and then you have an issue at home, too?
Yeah, the goal is to not kill each other. I mean, that's pretty much, that's the thing we said 30 years ago. We've almost violated it several times. But yeah, I think you're right. You sort of have to compartmentalize and set boundaries in terms of where does work end and your relationship and your personal life begin. And it's easier said than done, but it really can be done if you set ground rules.
What did we see in the pandemic, though? Do you have any idea? I mean, just thinking of our show alone, we have had dozens on top of dozens of folks whose life totally changed because of the pandemic. You know, where they were working shut down or they decided they didn't want to do it anymore. How many couples' businesses have we seen just kind of spin off from this pandemic?
Well, you're right. It's exploded. I mean, people want to work at home, or we were all kind of forced to do it. I mean, I was on the road for 23 years giving speeches to corporations all over the world. And all of a sudden I didn't fly for 15 months straight. It's kind of strange. But yeah, I think that we've all seen a new way to live, and the couples getting into business together. That's a segment that's absolutely exploding. And it's very powerful, and it's a lot of fun when it's done right.
I think, too, in the pandemic, people just kind of woke up and said, sometimes I'm giving my life to something I don't love or something that doesn't mean a lot to me, and they've just walked away from it. They are calling it the Great Resignation. I've seen nothing like it ever before. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I don't think the world's ever seen anything like it. It's just a kind of, like you said, kind of an awakening. And I think if there's one benefit that came out of all this craziness of the pandemic, maybe this is it. And can consider, a lot of people are obviously going into business for themselves, becoming entrepreneurs, and consider doing that with your spouse, because again, you have that advantage of complete trust, which is not easy to find in business across the board.
Okay, so let's talk, because I'm sure somebody watching right now is thinking about doing that business. We have somebody even here, pardon me, at our news station that has decided to take that leap with their spouse and make a new business. So get us started. What are the first things we're looking at?
Well, right off the bat, I would set boundaries. Again, make sure that you clearly delineate your personal life, your relationship, and your business. So they're completely separate things. Again, emotion often bleeds into the equation, but you're trying to think with logic. And the first step in that process, I believe, is writing these things down and having a serious meeting about it. So you've outlined some real ground rules. So you operate under logic as opposed to emotion.
Yeah, but my thought is the first time you disagree on something at work, because couples fight a little different than coworkers. I mean, how do you keep from bringing that into it? Like, you have to fight fair. In your relationship, sometimes you may not fight fair.
Yeah, fighting fair. I think you bring up a great point. It's crucial because you can't bring part of fighting fair. I believe is whatever you're fighting about in your personal life, you cannot bring to the business, and vice versa, because now all of a sudden you're blending two different relationships that you have with the same person, and that's very dangerous. So it's again easier said than done, but it can be done, especially if you prepare before you ever launch the business and have this conversation, because obviously the most important thing is maintaining and developing your relationship, which is far more important than any business you'll ever own.
So if you have a battle at work, is it important to always bring it up, or is it the same as your relationship? You pick your battles.
I think you pick your battles. Like, anyone that's been around had a relationship for so many years. We've been married for 38 years. We've been together, and you can't stay married, I don't think, more than for maybe a few years, without picking your battles. And in business, I think it's important too, because as a small business, you're making so many decisions so fast that someone's going to screw up almost every day, and your turn is next. And so be careful about too much criticism, especially with your partner, because you're going to be the next one that makes a mistake, and you're not going to want to have so much criticism on top of you.
Now, you say it's an advantage because you're with the person that you trust the most. When it comes to celebrating or saluting your partner, do parts of the relationships bleed in there? Because we've got Valentine's Day coming up. If your co-owner of your business is your wife or a husband, do you have to give them a gift at work too, or just on the home front?
Well, that's a great question. I think the gift would be patience with your, for sure, with yourself also, and because a business is a dynamic, living, breathing thing in some sense, and so you're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're gonna say dumb things sometimes. You're going to be under pressure. It could be financially or other, and so give the gift of patience, especially with your partner, but also with yourself.
How can we keep up with some of these tips or learn more? How can we hear your podcast and any other information?
Sure. The podcast is successmoneymarriage.com. And we try to have a little fun with it and talk about the craziness of what that goes on in the real world of being in business together for 30 years. So we have a lot of fun doing that. And people can buy the book if they like the book, of the How Money Works book, at Amazon or howmoneyworks.com.
All right. We appreciate you. This is certainly something to think about, and I hope the couples in Wave Country were listening today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much.
All right, everybody get ready. I'm getting ready to run outside, so I'll be doing more running. It is a speakeasy mobile cigar lounge, and it's right here in Wave Country. We'll talk to the fellas that thought it up. Stay with us.